Hey VC, it's Brad Vinyl Guy here, back with another new finds video. I mentioned in my previous videos I'm getting a little bit behind with the new finds, but I'm slowing it down, so hopefully I'll get on top of this eventually. These are all records that I bought from Vinyl Tap in Huddersfield a couple of days after Record Store Day. So start off with the Standels, and this is the Hot Ones. And this is original mono pressing from the USA from 1967. On Tower Records. Now, the reason why I picked this one up was because I had a conversation down below with Bo, Earhead 6, and we were talking about Ed Cobb on a previous video, and he'd said that Ed Cobb also produced the Standels, so I sort of made a mental note and thought, right, if I see something by the Standels, I must get it, because I haven't got anything by them at all, and they're kind of a garagey band, which is up my street, and this one turned up. So it's mainly an album of cover versions. Last Train to Clarksville, Sunny Afternoon, Little Red Riding Hood, the Sham and the Pharaohs song, which I know from 1981 by a post-punk group called 999. Says something about my credentials, I suppose, really. Summer in the City, 19th Nervous Breakdown, so heavy hitters from the 60s. And they've got a pretty tough job covering those, really, haven't they? But I think they've done a pretty good job with it, and I read one review that absolutely slammed it, but it's well made, it's well produced. You know, they're played well, and I think the only song of their own on here is Dirty Water, which had been on the previous album, and I think that used to be used as the victory song for the Red Sox and the Bruins. I don't know if it still is, but it certainly was a few years ago. I haven't seen much baseball in the last few years. Not many people in the UK are interested in it, apart from me. And they were formed in 1962 by Larry Tamblyn, the lead singer, and his brother was a famous, quite a famous actor who appeared in Twin Peaks and West Side Story, amongst other things. Originally from Los Angeles, and that song, Dirty Water I was just talking about, was written by Ed Cobb, the producer, about an incident he had on the Charles Bridge. Anything to do with the band, and they'd never been to Boston at that time in their career. But yeah, quite an interesting song, that one. So that's the Standels, the Hot Ones. Next up, a compilation, Hipsville Volume 3, The Return of the Frozen Few. And you look at a group of guys on the front there, that's the Yesi Men, who have got 3 songs on this compilation, 16-track compilation. And this is on Cramden Records. And this came out in 1995. As you can see, number 3 in the series, out of 3. And this is all Minnesota garage bands from the 60s. So various production qualities on here. The Yeti Men, who've got 3 songs on here, I mean, their stuff sounds like it was recorded on a cassette in a bedroom or something. But still good songs. The rest of them are produced a little bit better. One's quite Beach Boy-esque. But mainly garagey stuff on here. And there's some great liner notes on the back of here about each band. Sort of the most famous group on here, according to the sleeve notes, a group called the Unbelievably Uglies, a band who I'd fit in quite well with, because apparently they were unbelievably ugly, it says here. And there's many great groups come out of Minnesota. There's Trash Men, Prince, obviously. And yeah, like I said, some great liner notes on the back of here, some obscurities, so nice to pick up a nice obscurities compilation always, and a nice label here, Cramden Records, like it says, and it says on here, Bang Zoom, it's a Cramden record. Very 60s. Okay, so next, Every Mother's Son. Now I showed an album by them 2 or 3 videos back that I picked up in the other Vinyl Tap in Elska. And Randy Deadwax66 had left a comment saying, if you ever see their second album, try and pick that up, and I thought the chances of finding it in the UK are next to nil. It sold really poorly in the United States. This is a US pressing, so again, it would be difficult to get in the UK, and quite wacky sleeve here. That's the guy's backs, Every Mother's Son's back. But that's the fronts. And they're the group of guys from New York. I mentioned them a bit in the previous video, gave a bit of a run through of what they were like. Sunshine Poppy, very Beatles influenced. This came out in 1967, which is the same year as their first album came out. I mean, that used to happen back in the 60s and 70s, didn't it? Bit of a hole in here, but otherwise in really good condition. They made an appearance on A Man from U.N.C.L.E. apparently, did this band when they were at the peak. Give them a bit of extra publicity, because that was an MGM TV programme, they were on the MGM label. The original bass player had left the band when this second album came out, and They kind of sunk without a trace the year after this album, which is a bit sad. 3 singles came off it, but very limited success-wise. None of them made the top 40 in the United States, and yeah, they were gone after that. So Every Mother's Son. Next, the band you will have heard of, or a chap you will have heard of, is Manfred Mann. This is him and his Earth band Carnation, and this is called Watch from 1978. And it's kind of rocky of its time, late 70s rock, classic rock, maybe a little bit proggy. And it's kind of a live album with overdubs, some of it obviously live, other bits sound very smooth and produced. And this came out in 1978 on Bronze Records, and I think the only stuff I've got on Bronze Record is Motorhead. And Manfred Mann was born in Johannesburg, moved to the UK in 1961, and they got the name from Klaus Voormann, who was obviously in Manfred Mann originally, and he said he felt the band needed to sound a bit earthier, because they were quite known for being quite effeminate, shall we say, in the 60s, and that got them involved in a bit of an incident in a gig they were doing in Ireland. So Klaus Voormann said, you need to change your image, get things a bit more manly, shall we say, and there's a couple of very well-known songs on here. Davies on the Road Again, The Mighty Quinn, and they were obviously well-known for doing a cover of Bruce Springsteen's Blinded by the Light. So Manfred Mann's Earth Band and Watch. And Zeke, you were saying you're a big fan of Manfred Mann, so I don't know if you were in the Earth Band incarnation, but let me know. Next up, quite an interesting one, in my opinion. And my girlfriend's influence is over this one. If anything, I probably overpaid for this one, being fair. Got a little bit excited when we saw it. Bit of a rip in the sleeve here, but otherwise in fairly worn condition, but okay apart from that. This is Heads, Hands and Feet. And this is gatefold sleeve here. And the album's called Tracks, which is their second album that came out in 1971. And now, the reason why this is of interest to us, or my girlfriend in particular, was because it has Chaz Hodges on it, playing bass, fiddle, banjo, guitar and vocals. Now, many of you know in the UK will know Chaz Hodges from Chaz and Dave, a much derided duo, Cockney duo. But Heads, Hands and Feet, like I said, this is from 1971. We're a kind of country rock group. And Chaz Hodges, he is a good musician, and I'll always sing his praises, however people try to deride him. Because he worked with some of the greats, Jerry Lee Lewis, who he learned to play piano from just watching, apparently. He says in this book, all about us, I can read about him as well, that's how much we like him. And he worked with Richie Blackmore. He was in a band with Phil Lynott. Gene Vincent he also worked with. And he was in the house band for It Will Come to Me. No, it won't come to me. Anyway, believe me, he's a great musician. People take the mickey out of him. This is a really good country rock album. The first album that they made in the late 60s never saw the light of day until the 90s. Put another one out in 71, this one in 72. They split up in 73. They also worked as a backing band for Jerry Lee Lewis as well when he was in the UK. So Heads, Hands and Feet. And that was on the Pink Ringed Island label. It's always nice to have their label. Is that the right way? Yeah, okay. And came in the classic island sleeve as well. But yeah, like I said, probably overpaid for that one, but nice to have it all the same. Group from Scotland that formed in London, the Silencers. So we're moving forward to 1988 now, and this is a Blues for Buddha. And you can just about make them out on the bottom of the sleeve here, very small. And this is on RCA, and they're kind of a indie rock group, alt rock group, with kind of a Celtic blues influence. Maybe not so much blues, but kind of a Celtic influence. And this was the second album, and they emerged from post-punk group Fingerprints. Some of you might know them. Got a couple of one of their albums that's really good, kind of new wavy punky, but post-punk. Some backing vocals on here by a couple of people who were in the Scottish band the Bluebells and the McCluskey Brothers. And a couple of the guys in the band, one of them went on to be in the backing band for Adam Ant after he left Adam and the Ants. and one of them wrote songs for Lane Lovitch and Paul Young, so went on to do other things after the Silencers. But they were a late 80s group, early 90s, and they put stuff out throughout that period. This was, like I said, this was their second album. I do have their first album as well. Haven't heard that one yet. This next one is a new one that I bought online recently, and one that I've had in my basket for ages, like I procrastinate on these things sometimes. And this is Radiohead's album from last year, A Moon-Shaped Pool. Some really nice artwork on this one, and artwork on the inside of the record as well, which is always fun. But yeah, nice looking one here, and this one, as always, produced by Nigel Godrich. And this is on Excel Recordings. It came out 5 years after the previous album. 3 of the songs on here they tried to put out before on previous albums, but never were quite happy with the versions that they came out with. So they finally got them right and put them out on this album, and they toured some of the stuff on the album before it came out as well. So not new stuff on here, but those 3 songs I was talking about, The True Love Waits, Burn the Witch and Present Tense, which are on here. And it was quite an emotional album for the producer Nigel Godrich, because his father had passed away while they were making the album, Vic Godrich. So this album is dedicated to him, and that's mentioned on the back of here too. But they're kind of an indie rock, alt-rock, quite arty group, Radiohead. I've got a few of their albums on vinyl, so try and get some more. I liked OK Computer big time, but then we all, you know. Next up, sorry, I'm just losing everything on here. A Jack White production. This album is called Do Rabbits Wonder by a band called Whirlwind Heat. This originally came out in 2003. This is a repress from 2014. And they're kind of an punky blues, very White Stripes, you can hear them in here. As are a lot of Jack White proteges, I suppose. They're from Grand Rapids in Michigan. They made 3 albums, and this was the first one. This is a Record Store Day 2014 release. I didn't know this at the time when I bought it. They got the name from the Sonic Youth Goo album. Something to do with the artwork from that album. Being a bit compared to Devo. And this came out on 12 different colours on Record Store Day, apparently. They did have a couple of others in the shop, but we plumped for the purple version. You can see the Third Man logo on there. And all the song titles on here are colours. So you've got orange, black, purple, tan, etc, etc. But yeah, kind of a punky blues album. And that got what would only be called mixed reviews when it came out. I got absolutely crucified by a couple of websites. But it's okay for what it is, and it was nice to have it. Next up, an album that's in great condition, and this is a bit of bluegrass for you here, Mac Wiseman. And like I was saying about a previous album, if you ever see any folk or bluegrass or country, it's often my girlfriend's influence. She's a big fan of those genres. And Mac Wiseman, real name Malcolm Wiseman, born in 1929 in Virginia. Still with us now. And a singer of some note. And this album originally came out in 1962. This is an 80s repress on the Stetson label. I know Headley was talking about Stetson label recently. Mac Wiseman, he was originally a stand-up bass player, and when Flatt and Scruggs left the band they were in, he replaced them and became a guitar player in that band. And he was known as the voice with a heart because of his beautiful tones, apparently. And when the folk revival happened in the 60s, he was pretty big then, and he played at Carnegie Hall and in New York, and some massive gigs there. And it is what it is, you know, bluegrass. Beautifully done. There's the Stetson label, particularly attractive label there, I think. And yeah, great condition, that one. Really pleased to get hold of that one. And I'll end with another new album. This is another one I got online with someone who you probably won't like, but don't tell me about it if you don't like him. Tell me about it if you do like him. This is Moby, and this is Play. And every Man and a Dog had this on CD, didn't they, when it came out in the 90s, back in the 90s, 1999 I think, and this is the 2016 reissue that came out on Mute Records. And I really like this record because, and I know he's known for his sort of electro stuff, which I'm less keen on. But there's a lot of blues on here if you don't know it, and if you do know it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's played on loops from field recordings from a CD that Moby picked up in the 90s from a friend of his. And then loads of singles came off here, about 8 singles, Natural Blues being one of them. But very, like I said, very blues tinged, quite touching in places for an electronic record in particular. But even the electronic records on here I really like as well. A really good collection of songs. And Moby's career was on the floor when he brought this album out. I mean, he was really depressed. He wasn't selling any records. He'd said once he'd put this record out, he was going to pack it in. He was doing gigs that 50 people were coming to. He was supporting groups who weren't in his genre, so they weren't appreciating him either. Even though he was getting some good feedback from some famous people like Axl Rose were telling him that his latest album was great. This was the one before this one, and little things like that. So this album came out, great reviews, sold virtually nothing, scraped into the UK album charts. And then about 11 months after it came out, it went through the roof in terms of sales. It was selling 150,000 copies a week. So Moby was obviously really pleased about that, rejuvenated his career, and he's gone on to make several albums since, obviously. And I do like the follow-up to this one as well, but after that I've kind of lost touch with him. But nice to get a pressing of this one. And it's one that you can get new now, but it was made in quite short supply, so it's getting quite hard to get copies of it, or getting harder to get copies of it already. So that's Playing by Moby. And that's it from me. So again, thank you for getting all the way through this one. Big thank you for watching the entire video. Big thank you for new subscribers and old ones as well. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care, everybody. See you later.